Real YouTubers talk about birdies. This new birdie's interesting. I think what I meant to do. Hang on. I think what I meant to do was say interesting, so the syllables worked, but then I messed up because I said it regularly. Anyway, hello. What's going on? Next 3 videos, we're going to be talking about the legendary birds and how good they are, specifically the Galarian forms of the original Cantonian bird trio. Now, we're going to be talking about spoilers for this video, so if you don't want to know anything about Galarian Articuno, just click off now. Today, basically, if you do want to know, if you've stuck around, we're going to cover Galarian Articuno, do a brief overview, give you some ideas on like what my initial impressions of sets would be, and then, yeah, overall talk about viability and strengths and weaknesses. I do also want to say here, I'll zoom in, I know that people always complain about this. I do want to say I love the way the shiny forms look of the Galarian birds. They're so cool. I believe they're shiny locked and you can't get them, but like, honestly, one of my favorite shiny designs of all time. So, let's talk about Galarian Articuno. We have a method here, right? So we'll do that. Psychic Flying type. Definitely interesting typing. Psychic Flying is not unique. We've seen this on Lugia, we've seen this on Sigilyph. I'm sure there's a couple other Pokemon that get it as well. But it's an interesting typing. You get a 4 times resist to fighting, and you have like a fair bit of weaknesses, but no 4 times weaknesses. So, yes, you're weak to Rock, you're weak to Dark, you're weak to Electric, you're weak to Ghost, you're weak to Ice. I think that might be all of them. You're not weak to Bug because you resist it. And, like, Psychic and Flying don't inherently cover each other's weaknesses especially well, because, like, aside from Bug, like, the Electric, Rock, and Ice weaknesses of Flying aren't covered, and then the Ghost, Dark, and Bug weaknesses only Bug is covered. That being said, I don't hate Psychic Flying as a typing. It's definitely, it's interesting, right? It's like, you are neutral versus, like, a lot of, like, common types are neutral versus you. You have some resistances. I guess that actually shows you here. So you resist Grass, you 4 times resist Fighting, you resist Psychic, you resist, that's it. And then you're neutral versus, I guess, like, good chunk of types. I don't really know why, but Lugia always feels bulky, and it's partly because of the stats, but it's also because the typing is good. So, I don't hate Psychic Flying as a typing. Just off the bat, like, Pokemon has a habit of giving bad abilities to legendary Pokemon, I feel like. Or they get to give them all pressure, right? And, like, especially, like, non-box legendaries, it feels like a lot of them are, like, neutral to good. Like, Cresselia has Levitate, which is good. Hedron has Flash Fire, which is good, but, like, occasionally you'll get one that's, like, pretty, like, useless. Actually, I would say occasionally you get legendaries with pretty useless abilities. For example, the original forms of these birds only had pressure for the majority, maybe entirety of, I can't remember if they got their hidden abilities at some point in 2018, that were VGC legal, but yeah. Long story short, oftentimes you'll just see, like, a Pokemon like this with pressure, which is the Cantonian form's ability. However, it's not the case for Galarian Articuno. It actually gets competitive, which is a really, really good ability. It's not the best ability in the game, but especially in a Dynamax format, it's very strong. So, taking a look through this, let's take a look at the stats. I think it's good to kind of benchmark this with Cantonian Articuno, who has, like, good stats across the board, good special defense, good HP, attack doesn't matter, good defense, and, like, decent special attack. Galarian Articuno, I believe, has the same base stat total, however, the stats are redistributed. You have the same HP, which is, like, totally fine, 90 is totally fine for base HP, decent attack, lower defense by 15 points, lower special defense by 25 points, higher speed by 10, and then higher special attack by 30. So, overall, this is a really big buff in terms of stats. You could argue that in certain Pokemon, the top set of stats would be better, however, on a Pokemon that's going to be, like, typically more offensively minded, the lower set of stats are significantly better. The reason is, like, yes, you're less bulky, but, like, Articuno's probably going to be 2-shot by most neutral like moves anyway. Regardless of, I mean, maybe with this one you can actually EV for stuff and, like, I don't know, probably survive, like, make things 3-hit KOs, but you're not really doing that much back. We already know that based on its ability, like, Galarian Articuno is going to be aimed to be an offensive Pokemon because of competitive. It's not necessarily going to be a sweeper, but it is going to be a Pokemon that's geared more offensively than defensively, a bulky offensive Pokemon, if you will. And so the extra special attack goes a long way, especially when you consider that even after 1 competitive boost, it doubles it. So, yeah. Overall, the stats are solid. Like if we want to look a little bit more in depth, like the speed, you normally want to be above base 100, but base, like, 95 is totally fine. In my opinion, especially on a flying type that could use max airstream, right? Special defense is still very good. 100 is, like, totally fine. Like, the defenses are fine, right? Like, the HP is good enough that, like, it's going to be, like, it's got decent natural bulk, because I guess what I'm trying to say. And then the special attack, like, is actually really good. 125 is good special attack stat. So, I keep forgetting this thing isn't ice type, which, like, I don't know, at least for me, is difficult to remember. But let's take a look at the moves. So, The first thing we note here is Tailwind. So Tailwind is, I believe, it's unique to Galarian Articuno of the 3 birds. Tailwind is a phenomenal support move. We can just really quickly, I'm actually not sure which other Pokemon get it, but yeah, Galarian Articuno, you see the other Cantonian birds don't get it. Suicune still gets it, which is good. The Latias get it, which is good. Drifblim, Whimsicott, Braviary, Tornadus, Mandibuzz, Talonflame, Noivern, and then, yeah, Corviknight. So, like, there's basically, I would say, like, 5 or 6 good Tailwind users, being Galarian Articuno, Crobat, I missed Crobat. Crobat, Suicune, that's 3. The Latias are, like, really not great Tailwind users. They might, maybe they'll be good in the format, I kind of doubt it, but, like, maybe, but probably not. Like, 3, not counting these 2. Drifblim's good in specific situations, so I'll count it 4. Whimsicott is 5. Braviary, no, I'm not counting Braviary. Mandibuzz, I'm also not counting. Tornadus is really good, though. 6. Talonflame is 7. Not that Talonflame is a good Pokemon, but it's a good Tailwind setter. Noivern we're not counting, and then Corviknight I will count because it's bulky enough. So I'd say there's 8 Tailwind users that you can use effectively. And then if you really wanted, you could use one of the Latias, like you could use Braviary and Mandibuzz. They're just not as good at all. Like, basically, the reason, like, Articuno's fast enough and, like, offensive enough that it can force defensive plays, which gives you, like, the ability to play offensively in Tailwind, so that's why it's good. Crobat's super fast. Suicune's super bulky, so it can consistently set Tailwind. That's the same reason as Corviknight. Whimsicott is Prankster, which means it always goes first. Braviary and Mandibuzz are, like, in this uncanny valley where, like, well, Braviary is just, like, it's not bulky enough or fast enough, but it's also, like, it's not, yeah, it's like in the middle, so it's not a good Tailwind setter because it's not consistent. And then Mandibuzz, like, is a good Tailwind setter because it's bulky, but it's a Pokemon you don't really want in your team because it doesn't do damage. And, like, the support moves that it gets are not, like, that valuable either. Tornadus is always going to be one of the best Tailwind setters because it is Prankster, same with Whimsicott, but Tornadus is faster, and, oh wait, no, Tornadus is slower, what am I saying? But Tornadus is, like, actually has offensive pressure, which is cool. Talonflame is the fastest Prankster Tailwind setter in the game, so yeah, that's why Talonflame is a good Tailwind setter, and then Corviknight, like I mentioned, is bulky. So basically, Tailwind is one of the best moves in the game when you're not fighting against Trick Room teams, and it is limited in distribution. Now, you can see that Articuno is the only one of the 3 that gets it between Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno, and so having access to it is a big deal. It's just like an overall really valuable move, and in Generation 8, you typically want Tailwind to be used on faster Pokemon, but it's still a super solid option on Articuno, so yeah. Next important move we see is Recover. You could train this thing to be super bulky and give it Recover. You could also, like, if your team doesn't need Tailwind, you can just run Recover as a filler move. Because the typing isn't inherently, like, super defensive, I don't think Recover is, like, the best move on it, but it is, like, good for certain builds. Excuse me, and certain options. Here's something interesting. So we have Freezing Glare, which is a 90 base power Psychic type move that has a, I believe, 10%? 10% chance to freeze. Freeze, as we know, is one of the most broken status conditions. It's the most broken status condition of the game. It's incredibly volatile. So, yeah, the fact that Articuno's primary stab move is going to be a move that can freeze, it's not good for the metagame, but it's good if you're an Articuno fan. Basically, what this means is, okay, like, let's say I've got, who's a good example? Like, Aegislash, right? I've got Aegislash, one of the bulkiest Steel-type Pokemon in the game. And my opponent has an Articuno. And I'm like, well, like, and I have like, a Galarian Weezing on the field, right? And I'm like, well, I don't want my Weezing to take the Psychic attack. Let me switch into my Aegislash, right? And the issue is that Articuno's primary offensive move is this Freezing Glare attack, which means, like, it's like the no drawback I'm clicking it to use my Psychic-type stab move, and so switching into it isn't safe, right? Like, not 1 out of 10 times, your Aegislash is going to be frozen, and, like, maybe you lose the game on that. So it's a very dangerous attack. You should never use a different Psychic-type attack on Articuno unless you're running multiple Psychic-type attacks, so, yeah. Other moves, Hurricane is a big deal. So this is a move that not all the birds got for a long time. Like, Zapdos never got Hurricane, as I recall, back in previous generations. People would run, like, Thunderbolt, Roost, Tailwind, Heat Wave, Hidden Power, Ice, 4 of those 5 most of the time, Detect maybe. And so, yeah, Hurricane's very, very, very good. It is inconsistent in that, like, it needs to be in rain to be 100% accurate, but you also could, because of Dynamax and Max moves, like, yeah, it gains consistency. Additionally, the max move power is 140, which is really, really, like, powerful. The difference between a 130 and 140 on a move is a big deal, so having a 140 base power max move is really strong. We're not going to talk about Cantonian Articuno today. Other useful moves, the screens are, like, they're always good to have, but you're probably not running it on Articuno. Icy Wind is only on Cantonian Articuno. I had a moment there. Imprison's a cool move. You're most likely not going to run this on Articuno, but, like, you could if you didn't need Tailwind or Recover. You could use this to, like, lock Protect and Hurricane. It's not great, but you could do it. U-turn, it's not a great user of U-turn. Here's something really interesting. So it actually does get access to Trick Room. As I mentioned, 95 is kind of like, it's on the faster end, but it's not like the fastest. So you could easily, we can actually just take a look here. If we were to run Galarian Articuno with, I'll zoom in, people always complain about Showdown as well, with 0 speed and a quiet nature, you can see it gets down to like 90 beat speed, which, okay, granted is still relatively fast, especially for a Trick Room setter. But you could use this as like a counter to opposing, like opposing really fast teams, because like as I mentioned, the bulk is pretty middling. Like it's good bulk, but it's not like phenomenal. It's not like you're using Shuckle or anything. So what you can do instead is you can also use this as like a Trick Room bot, like like Protect, Trick Room, Freezing Glare, and then Hurricane. I know we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but this is like something you can do. And with max HP, you see it's actually like 197, 105, 120. These are good defensive, and 194 good defensive and offensive stats. So you could absolutely do this if you wanted. Sorry, continuing on. Power Swap and Guard Swap are cool moves with their 2 situation. They'll be consistent. Trick Room we mentioned. You can use Air Slash as well. I think the maximum power is 120, which is bad. Oh, it's 130. Okay, you can use Air Slash as well as a more consistent Hurricane option, so that's solid. Psychic Agility Substitute. Shadow Ball. People will probably ask me about Shadow Ball. I wouldn't recommend using it personally. I think you're better off with dual stab, protect, and then coverage move. Skill Swap's always a neat move. Like I got second at Worlds using a strategy that centered around Skill Swap, so I will always like Skill Swap, and it's like I don't have any ideas off the top of my head of like, oh, I'm gonna use Articuno to use Skill Swap to do like this, but like it's a cool move to have, and like it's something to keep in mind, right? Brave Bird, I mean, I guess Stored Power, Calm Mind, like you're probably not running Setup Articuno, but you could. Allies, which is another 4th filler move that you can run if you wanted. And then Expanding Force. So yeah, I wouldn't use this. Yeah, so those are all the moves. That's kind of a pretty thorough overview. We talked about the Trick Room set. The default set I think is going to be something like this. I don't exactly know what item is optimal because I don't think you need Focus Sash. Hurricane or Air Slash. So you do this. I think you just run a pretty standard set like this. 166. That's not a multiple, so that's fine. I think this is going to be your default set. It's going to depend. It's going to be metagame dependent, of course. But yeah, like this is going to be like pretty solid. This is a really good answer to Landorus, by the way. I didn't really touch on it, but they're not answer, but it's a really good. It discourages Landorus from switching in thanks to competitive. So yeah. I'm not sure exactly which item is going to be optimal in this. Like, I would start by trying, like, Citrus Berry, and, like, if it's getting one shot, you can give a Focus Sash. Additionally, I think, actually, Waken Berry could be good. I'm going to really quickly run that calc. Actually, Regieleki is already in here. Probably not going to be running Life Orb. Let's say they're running, like, regular Regieleki, and I have Articuno Galar. Let's see. I am not Dynamax. Wait, why is this not doing damage? Oh, Thunder. I want Thunderbolt. Okay, Thunderbolt versus, yeah, maybe like Wackenberry, right? Like, this lets you survive even modest Life Orb Regieleki. You can EV for that, like, if you really want, or you just say, okay, I'm probably fine, 12.5, or, okay, yeah. So you live this most of the time. If you really wanted, you could do, like, this, 28, right? Do 28 and then drop a little special attack. I probably would just do 4, personally, but if you wanted to be super safe, you could do this. 228. Right? And now you have a Pokemon that can set up Tailwind in front of Regieleki, right? And Tapu Koko for that matter. And it outspeeds Landorus, which is going to be using mostly rock moves. So I think this could be super solid, personally. Although, again, I would probably do this, personally. Just depends on how safe you want to be. Because I don't think Modest Life Orb Regieleki is going to be super popular. I think Focus Sash is going to be more popular if I had to guess. But yeah, so this is just like it's a solid Pokemon for a number of reasons. It's nice because it's kind of a jack of all trades. You can get speed control with it. You can get some offensive pressure. You can Dynamax it. You don't have to Dynamax it. It's got a great spammable stab move and Freezing Glare. It's got a more risky stab move and Hurricane, but like really good for Dynamaxing. Yeah, so I think this is going to be a really solid, starting set. I don't know if Wackenberry is the optimal item, but given how popular Regieleki already is, I think it probably should be. Also, if we look at like usage stats, this is Pikalytics, by the way, just for anyone curious. You see Incineroar is number 1 and Landorus is number 3, and Regieleki is number 5. So like in theory, Articuno is actually not bad here at all. because, yeah, like, I mean, it discourages Incineroar, the number 1 most used Pokemon. It discourages Landorus a lot, the number 3 most used Pokemon. And then, like, Regieleki really relies on speed control to be moving first. And with Wackenberry, you actually get something interesting with Articuno because, like, sorry, this is longer than I intended, but I just have a lot to say. Regieleki, I think we talked about, one of its main strengths is its ability to use Electroweb and provide some speed control. And the nice thing about competitive is that it discourages all kinds of stat drops. So that means max Ghost, max Darkness, max Normal, max Bug, max... which one? Dragon. I think that's all of them. But it also means support moves like Icy Wind and Electroweb, which are really solid support moves, and I expect to see an uptick, like if Icy Wind especially, with the, like, new Pokemon. But yeah, it discourages those moves as well. So a Pokemon that, like, Regieleki using Electroweb and expecting to 2-hit your Articuno, or maybe, like, to combo in with an attack for the partner, like, with something that would, like, outspeed it thanks to the Electroweb, maybe now doesn't KO. So, yeah, so I think Articuno's super solid for that reason. And, yeah. Like, it doesn't have a positive matchup versus Tapu Fini, and it's very bad against Metagross. I would say it's not good versus Glastrier. It's good against Zapdos, Galar. It's good against Cortana. Probably. I don't know how much knockoff does. So maybe, like, middling there. Good against Rillaboom. Like, neutral versus Tornadus. Like, you can see that, like, basically, it has some tough matchups. Takataka, Dragapult, Tapu Koko, Glastrier, Metagross, Tapu Fini's neutral, I would say. Like, leaning Articuno, maybe. No, Tapu Fini's too bulky. But I think it's a really interesting, like, positional piece, right? If you're able to keep it around and, like, yeah, like, protect it well, I think that it can serve your team really well. What I like about Articuno, like, I don't love competitive as an ability, despite, like, I've used Milotic a lot over the years, and overall I feel like it's really disappointed me, Milotic specifically, because if it doesn't get the boost up, it's really disappointing. And what I like about Articuno is that with these moves that it gets, it's not a Pokemon that you can just say, okay, well, if it gets boost, it's going to win, and if it doesn't get boost, it's going to lose. It's like, it's a Pokemon that functions even without the boost. So, yeah. I'll give you one more set. We've already talked about Trick Room, Articuno. Again, maybe Wackenberry here. I think Wackenberry might be best in slot, but I haven't played enough to really know. Does it get Cosmic Power? I'm just curious. I don't think you should use Cosmic Power. Okay, yeah. Actually, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I think that you should always run Protect, Freezing Glare, and Hurricane. I think what happens next is kind of up to you. We didn't talk about Ally Switch. It gets Ally Switch, right? Like, if you already have a Tailwind setter, you don't think you're going to need it, maybe Ally Switch, right? Maybe Calm Mind could be good. Maybe there's a couple other really cool support moves that it gets that I called out. I just forgot what they were. Calm Mind. You could run Recover if you really wanted. I really don't think Recover is good here, like, the more I think about it, but you could run it. If you're really risky, you can run Hypnosis. Like, if you're like, I don't want... Okay, there's no real reason to do this, but if you want to just meme and, like, yeah, like, this is a funny set, right? It's not good, but, like, there's no reason to use that over Tailwind plus Wackenberry, but you can do it if you want. Yeah, I think pretty much what I've covered is going to be what you want to do, truthfully. Like, unless you want to counter other Articuno, do what I use, like, using Imprison, which, like, don't do that. Or, yeah, like... In theory, I guess you could... In theory, you could Scarf it, yes. In theory, you could Specs it, but I'm going to be honest and say that, like, I don't think those are good. Like, I don't think that's how you want to play Articuno at all. So, I normally give 3 sets. This time we're only going to do 2. And really, just it's this one, right? This is just a variant with, like, different EVs. Like... And even, like, you could run Life Orb instead of Wackenberry, but I don't know if it's strong enough. Like, I don't think... I think, honestly, the bulk is probably worthwhile. At least if you're running Tailwind. If you're not running Tailwind, then, like, maybe everything goes out the window, but with Tailwind, I think a defensive item to, like, ensure that you get Tailwind up when you need to is probably pretty valuable. So, that's all I have to say. I know this is a little all over the place. I like to kind of figure these out as I go and kind of learn. Like, I did take a look at everything beforehand, but, like, I still think that, like, the majority of this set innovation is kind of my initial impression, so I do like to do that with you all watching here, so... Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I think it's a cool Pokemon. I don't think it's going to be metagame dominant, but I don't think it's a Pokemon that you can underestimate either, and I do think it's something that, like... I think that if players find a smart way to like, use this Pokemon, it should be pretty threatening. And I think it's a lot more multi-dimensional than, like, it initially appears. So that's kind of my first look at Articuno. It's a cool Pokemon, finally. I'm glad that they made these Pokemon that have been so... Listen, Kanto was just trash. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. Articuno was just, like, actually awful. For, like, a long time. So, I'm glad that, like, like, it's nice to see a Pokemon that was just horrible for its entire competitive existence get a rework that's now actually, like, makes it viable. So I definitely expect to see this thing on the ladder. I definitely expect it to be a solid Pokemon. I definitely don't think it's a Pokemon you can underestimate. I don't think it's broken either. I don't think this is the #1 Pokemon coming out of the Crown Tundra, but maybe top 20, top 30, right? Like, I think it could be pretty solid. So that's all I have to say. Again, this went a little longer than expected, but hopefully you don't mind. Thanks for watching. Let me know which Pokemon you want to see next covered from the new ones, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.